Yo, what up, everybody? I'm your host, Will. Welcome to Fandom Frequency. This is where we get into the entire multiverse of pop culture, if you will. Wrestling, anime, comic books, TV shows. We talk about it around these parts. Make sure you're clicking on the buttons below the video. We really do appreciate your support, and make sure you're downloading all the latest and greatest episodes that we do offer here on the channel, as well as on our podcast feed, if you love audio only. But today, we're going to be getting into our latest and greatest installment of our long form show. It's been a minute, but we're back at it. The Phantom Frequency Show, man. Episode 31, where we get into various topics, whether it's multiple movie, TV show reviews, news topics. And let me tell you today, we got a lot of news topics to be dropping on y'all. So, yeah, with no further ado, let's get right into this shit, man. And we got a little bit of negative, we got some positives, so we got a little bit of everything to talk about here today. But I figured, why don't we start with a surprising movie, man? And let me say, this year I have been getting a little bit behind on some of the latest releases when it comes to films and stuff like that. I haven't been able to get out reviews and content here on the channel for everything I want to because I have to work opening and closing at my day job right now. And a lot of the other guys have been getting busy with other things too. Skippy's busy with school and whatnot. Our boy Miguelito moved out of town. My boy Drew only gets 1 day off per week, but our days off do align, so you're going to be seeing him on the channel a little bit more often. But yeah, man, so day jobs are getting in the way. But this was a movie that I missed earlier this year, but I got to say is one of my biggest surprises. Going to go down absolutely in my top 10 movies of the year. And I'm talking about the movie Talk to Me. This thing was a fucking surprise, man. We're going to get into full-on spoilers, so if you haven't seen this thing, for some odd reason like myself, make sure you click off the video, go watch the movie, come back here, do what you got to do. But let me tell you what, this film is fucking awesome, man. It's so kick-ass. It's so kick-ass, and it centers on these kids in Australia. It takes place over there in Australia as well, and there's the protagonist, Mia. She just recently lost her mother in some mysterious circumstances. Can't get any straight answers from her father, so a lot of stuff going on there. And she just tried to live her typical teen life, hanging out with her best friend and whatnot. And then they go to a party and they have this weird hand that's supposed to be a severed limb from a medium that can communicate with the dead that they got off this other kid. And craziness ensues, and they use this kind of conduit to speak to spirits, if you will, as a cheap party trick. And let me tell you what, this film kicks off with a fucking bang, where it starts in this party, and there's this one kid, he's looking for his brother or whatever. His brother looks like he is like on some drugs or like completely tweaked out, like dude is on a fucking tailspin or something. And then he tries to stab his brother and succeeds. His brother goes down, and then the dude kills himself by stabbing himself in the fucking face with his big ass knife. And then Talk to Me flashes across the screen, and you're like, what the fuck did this guy just do? Why did he do that? What caused him to do this? And that's the one thing with this hand or whatever. Once you grab a hold of it and say, talk to me, and then you start feeling all the weird entities and spirits coming up, and then the person that's grabbing a hold of the hand, if the object can see whatever spirit they have conjured from the afterlife in front of them, whether it's the grotesque, disfigured, normal person, what have you. And once they say, let me in, it literally possesses them for a short period of time or whatever, or they only do it for a specific period of time because they have to light this candle in order to connect to the spirit life or the spirit world or whatever, the afterlife. And once they blow the candle out after they've said, let me in, and let the craziness ensue for like a certain set amount of time, I think it's like 30 seconds or something like that, 45 seconds, then they shut it off, and then they disconnect the feeling, the connection they have with the spirit or whatever, with the demon. And then for the weird, the kind of the weird parallel that they use in this movie that actually does work really well is how it almost gives them a feeling of like taking a drug and needing another hit. You know what I'm saying? And that was the one thing that I absolutely loved about this film, was the fact that they were able to use so many real world parallels with things going on in the film, whether that's grief, whether that's addiction, whether that's peer pressure, and the way that they were able to seamlessly work these themes and the social commentary about certain things into the story in a very subtle way, without preaching, without hitting you over the head with the messages that they're trying to convey with the film. The film really can speak on its own and just be a creepy, supernatural horror film, and that's where it shines, man. And the characters and the acting once as well are so fucking top notch, man. This is some of the strongest acting I've seen from no-name actors in a horror film or any film for that matter in at least a few years. Really strong performances here by everyone involved. Really, really awesome film. I forgot to pull the names of the directors, man, but I gotta give them a huge shout out. Such a really great job with just the overall scare scenes and the way that they're able to use the atmosphere and really building the tension and rely on the actors' performances and not modulating a voice to try to get the creepiness of the possession across. They're able to do that strictly through performance and somewhat with sound design, but strictly with acting first and foremost and with direction. And to me, that's where a horror film truly shines, especially when it's a possession film or some kind of supernatural entity type film. For me, it really does play the best when the actors are able to portray what's going on and able to portray the possession and able to really bring that across and make you really feel like these people are possessed by some evil spirit or whatever, or something that we just don't understand. And the way that these actors are able to do it, so well done. Really, really great stuff. And I gotta say, just the overall pacing of the film is really well done. You're never bored. It never takes too long to get to the next scare. There's definitely some gnarly kills in the movie. It doesn't rely on gore by any means, but it definitely, when it wants to go there, it goes there. And they don't stray away from it. It's not a bunch of CGI nonsense either in this film. They very much rely on practical effects. And to me, that's also a big plus because especially in the genre of horror, I don't want to see a bunch of CGI and weird creatures and shit like that, computer animated designs and stuff. I get sometimes you have to do it to be able to pull off certain things. It's just not practical to do it practical. But at the same time, I don't like the reliance of CGI and non-practical effects these days in the 21st century when it comes to horror. Never really works as well and rarely does it unless you're doing sci-fi, really out there type stuff where it's absolutely necessary. And when it's done right and when it looks seamless and when it looks fairly realistic for what it is, then it works. And for this film here, I don't really think they use any CGI in this film. And if they do, it's so subtle, I never noticed it. They really rely on using things in the background, using different things in the background and foreground to creep you out, and letting the camera sit still and sit on the actor and sit on the moment and really let the tension build and really let you get disturbed and let those goosebumps rise in your skin and let the freaking horror and the real terror that this film is trying to put across to the audience, and it really gets to you, man, and you really feel it. And that's the thing I love with this movie, man. It doesn't rely on the cheap tricks, the jump scares, the audio cues and all that stuff, man. They really go back to old school filmmaking style with this without making it boring, without making it dull, without getting too artsy fartsy, elevated type shit to where you can't get involved with the film and where you can't be along for the ride and get that thrill that a lot of people go to horror films for and go to these type of movies to see, especially when you're talking about the general audience. And that's why I think this film did so well and went over so well and got so much hype earlier this year, because it's such a crowd pleaser while at the same time it's so fucked up and dark. Like the way that things end up for this character Mia, where she essentially, at least the way that I perceive the ending, is that she gets thrown into the street as opposed to the kid she was about to throw into the street, gets killed by the car, goes into the afterlife, and then gets summoned by another person using the hand once again somehow to contact the spirit and gets their hands on it. How? I don't know. But that's the whole crazy part with this movie. It's not a happy ending whatsoever. It's a straight up fucked up ending for all the characters involved. People get killed, people die, people lose loved ones, and there is no answer to where this damn hand came from. Was this truly a medium? What is the true connection here? And where do they get it from other than the kid? Where did the kid get it from? So that's the whole mystery that they barely really spell out for you, but gets to hang as a loose end at the end of the film without you feeling like you're missing a crucial part of the story or feeling like you got gypped. You know what I'm saying? So that's the number one thing I really love with the movie. The story really carries through. There's definitive character arcs for the character of Mia, and the way that the whole connection that she gets to her mom through this evil spirit or whatever that I think is manipulating her and isn't really her mother, is actually some evil spirit pretending to be her mother. We've seen this before in these type of movies, but I think the way that they do it here and relying on the grief and relying on the trauma that the character feels and the closure that is completely lacking from her never getting to say goodbye to her mother, I can fully relate to that as someone that's lost loved ones and didn't get to say goodbye several times over throughout my life. So all that stuff is very palpable and very relatable for you to get invested into the character and in her journey And there really is a journey for these characters, and there really is a path that they go on, and a lot of mistakes that they make and decisions that have to be made. And a lot of fucked up stuff is going on, a lot of trauma that these kids have to carry with themselves as they lose their loved ones and their friends closest to them one by one. And as they make these terrible mistakes that they all regret and wish they didn't fuck with this thing to begin with, there's no turning back. There's no way to correct it. There's no way to go back. It's set in stone. What's done is done. And that's another aspect of the story that I love so much about it. And a theme that really carries through in this film really, really well is the fact that your decisions do have consequences, and there's no way to go back. And no matter how bad you feel for it, it may still all be your fault, and you got to live with the repercussions of that. So that, to me, just really makes this film stand strong, and is going to really make this stand the test of time and feel timeless and not just seem like some modern horror movie, but I think it's going to go down in history and maybe even go down as a classic. Who knows? Only 10 to 20 years will tell, but I absolutely enjoyed this film. I don't necessarily think it's flawless, though. I do think some characters do make some dumb decisions, and some of the logic is a little wonky, especially towards the end of the first act and then the second act. But once you get to the third act and everything really comes together, you truly understand where all the characters are coming from, and they don't make as many dumb decisions, and the characters start to kind of get hit to the situation and try to do something about it. But as things start to descend truly into madness, into the fucked up territory and where the story goes, really, really enjoy it. Really well done film. I can't wait to see what these filmmakers do in the future and to see if they do a Talk to Me 2, if this becomes a franchise. Part of me wants it to. Part of me is kind of scared for that to be happening as well. Sort of. I pretty much felt the same way about the latest Eli Roth film, Thanksgiving. That review should be up on the channel right now. So once you're done watching this, make sure you go check that out and celebrate. Do a little post-turkey day with your fam and friends and all that. But we did drop that here on Thanksgiving Day, so you can enjoy that goodness. A little late, but better late than never. But yeah, absolutely love this film. Talk to Me. I'm giving it a straight up 8.5 out of 10. This was a really awesome movie, man. It was just some of the logic issues and some of the stuff in the middle and towards the beginning that kind of got me, a little bit off kilter a little bit and couldn't fully get this up to a 9+. Also, I do think that they didn't develop Mia's dad enough in the film, and the conflict in the whole thing that they got going on with her. I mean, with him and her, and the whole relationship of the two was never fully spelled out. And while I do understand that you want to leave some things for the audience to interpret themselves, not spell everything out and spoon feed everything to us, and I do appreciate that as a viewer, being able to kind of make up my mind about certain things and not have everything just given to me on a silver platter. I can kind of think things out and interpret them as I want to. But I do think they kind of had a little bit of a missed opportunity in that aspect for the character of Mia, and just strengthening her whole connection with her dad, and just building on that whole aspect of the story and that whole theme would have really hit harder, especially in that third act when things really go the way they do, when she ends up killing him and whatnot, and ends up seeing him in the afterlife, and that's where they're split off for good. All that stuff would have really hit, I think, just a little bit harder if they would have developed the father and their relationship a little bit more between her and Mia. So those are some of my few negatives with the film. I want to know what you think about this down below. I'm going to try my best to get these all, to get this clipped out perhaps, so you can see this review separately as well from the long form show. But I absolutely love this film. Talk to Me. Make sure you go and check this goddamn thing out if you haven't already. One of the best films of the year, bar none, in my personal opinion. Definitely worth a watch. Even if you're not into spooky stuff, go ahead and do it. Even Drew watched it, and he can't handle scary movies to save his life. So make sure you go check that out. Oh, wait, sorry. I'm confusing that with Smile. That was from last year. Never mind. Forget what I said. Talk to Me. 2023. Goddamn. Hell of a good horror movie, man. So, let's get into this next subject, shall we? And we're going to be getting into What's the Word? That's right. That is the segment where we get into all the pop culture news of the day. And we're chock full of it today. So, or actually, before we get into What's the Word, I'm going to do a little recap, because your boy, just this past last weekend, not this weekend coming up when the time you see this, but this past weekend, last weekend, I got the chance to go and see All Elite Wrestling live. And for those that don't know, we have talked about wrestling on the channel before. I am definitely somewhat of a lifelong wrestling fan, watching on and off for years since I was a kid. You know, Stone Cold Steve Austin, John Cena, The Rock, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, all those guys, a lot of those are my favorites. The Undertaker, what have you. But All Elite Wrestling is not WWE, obviously. And I got the chance to go check out the double feature between their Saturday Night Collision show and their Friday Night Rampage. All went down last Friday. November 17th, and I got a chance to check it out live at the Kia Forum. It was freaking rad, dude. So freaking rad. Had an absolute blast, and it was leading into the main pay-per-view from last Saturday, Full Gear, one of their major pay-per-views that they do every year. And it was a stacked card, man. You had So you had the TBS champion, Chris Statlander, and the women's champion, Hikaru Shida, going on a tag team match against Saraya, a.k.a. Paige from the WWE days, and Ruby Soho, who also used to be in WWE, I believe, on the NXT side of things. And yeah, so they had a tag team match that went down as the main event of the Collision side of the show. They also had Daniel Garcia versus Miro, a.k.a. The Redeemer, and he also used to be in WWE as well. That was also a great way to kick off the show. Really, really fun match. Another great match that came, not as a surprise, but really, really blew me away was Roosh versus Dax Harwood from one of the greatest tag teams today, FTR. That was an absolute banger of a match, man. I have not seen two dudes ever chop each other in the chest as much as these guys do. And don't you be making it dirty. You know what I meant. But yeah, man, it was such a hell of a match, dude. These guys literally bled and popped blood vessels from freaking chopping each other so hard. So it was just an absolute barn burner of a match, man. You had the House of Black going up against Dalton Castle's homeboys, the Boys, in a tag team match as well. Had a couple warm-up matches. And then one of my favorites of the night, for sure, was the great timeless Toni Storm versus Emi Sakura from Japan fame. And let me tell you, that girl can't be over 4'11". But man, does Emi Sakura hit hard, dude. Toni Storm's chest was still red the day after on the pay-per-view, man, from the chops and from the hits and the strikes that she was taking from that girl, Emi Sakura, man. It was absolutely intense. Toni Storm is also one of my favorite female competitors in wrestling, period, in many years. So I'm really loving the timeless, crazy Marilyn Monroe character she's been playing ever since she lost the AEW Women's title recently, a few months back, and all that stuff back at All In Wembley Stadium and all that stuff earlier this year. Yeah, man, so a lot of really cool matches. Not going to necessarily get into every single one and every single detail. Was really cool to get to see Christian Cage live as well. Didn't get to see my boy Edge. I was a little disappointed, but hey, what are you going to do? But really, really cool to get to see a lot of my favorite AEW wrestlers live. Had some really awesome seats as well at the Kia Forum. Got them for a great price as well. Really awesome stuff. Getting to see MJF, Maxwell Jacob Friedman. That's right, he's better than you. Getting to see him live was also a treat. Definitely one of my favorite wrestlers in a long time, and I think he's going to go down as one of the best wrestlers of this generation. The current AEW champion, longest reigning AEW world champion. Spoiler alert for those that don't know, and kind of spoiling a little bit of that Full Gear. The next day, the pay-per-view, didn't get the tickets for that because it sold out quick as a motherfucker. But that's right, we're going to be talking about the Full Gear pay-per-view. We're going to get a whole recap on that, John, right now. And man, hell of a pay-per-view. It was stacked from top to bottom. You had the Guns versus MJF and Samoa Joe for the Ring of Honor tag team titles in the freaking pre-show. Then you had a whole stack card from there. You had the Women's World title between Hikaru Shida and Timeless Toni Storm, with Toni Storm coming out the winner, getting the belt as I thought she would. Then you had a triple threat match with Chris Statlander versus Julia Hart and what's that girl's name? Sky Blue. Triple threat match for the TBS title, and I was so damn pissed that my girl Chris Statlander ended up dropping the title to Julia Hart. And I do see the AEW is trying to make a big push for Julia Hart right now. I guess she's kind of getting over with the audience. Far from my favorite performer. I don't think her wrestling is really all that great. I don't think she's really that great in the ring. Pretty decent character work and promo stuff. I will admit that. She is really a decent performer, but I don't necessarily think she's that great, and I'm kind of bummed that they made Chris Statlander drop the title to her. I don't think she's necessarily going to be that great of a champion. I don't see her necessarily getting much more popular from here. But hey, who knows? I could be wrong. There was a time where I didn't even like Orange Cassidy. And now, Freshly Squeezed is one of my favorite guys. Anything can change. But I still hate Danhausen. So that's another thing. And that fucker's back apparently too, as of this recent past week on AEW Dynamite. Who the fuck cares about that? I definitely don't. But yeah, and as we continue with the Full Gear pay-per-view, man, you had freaking Texas Death Match, the grudge match for the ages, Swerve Strickland versus Hangman Adam Page. And let me tell you what, I was getting some serious 90s ECW vibes from this match. Hardcore hitting stuff, man. People falling on glass, getting hit with tables, getting hit with barbed wire covered fucking chairs and shit, man. Hitting hit with cinder blocks, you know what I mean? Shit was getting crazy, bro. Shit was getting insane, man. I gotta tell you what, Swerve Strickland is quickly becoming one of my new favorite additions in AEW in the past couple years with the whole Mobile Embassy merger they kind of did with the factions there. I think has been working in spades, and the whole rivalry between Hangman Adam Page and Swerve Strickland has been nothing short of phenomenal. They just keep ratcheting up the tension. They just keep getting it personal, and I love how the back and forth. Swerve is 2-0 against Hangman right now after winning the Texas Death Match this past weekend. So it's going to be interesting to see if they're going to have that rubber match down the line. He is in the Continental Classic round robin tournament that they're doing now that we'll get more into as we keep recapping AEW through the remainder of the year up until the World's End pay-per-view, which will definitely recap in a similar fashion to this. But yeah, man, so Swerve Strickland, Hangman Adam Page, definitely one of my favorite matches of the night. You also kicked off the show with a triple threat match, or not a triple threat match, my bad, a trios match with the legend himself, the icon Sting, Darby Allin, and my man Edge, aka Adam Copeland, versus Christian Cage, the heel of all heels, Nick Wayne, and Luchasaurus. And man, that was a hell of a match as well. And I figured the Edge and them would get the W as they did, but it was really a great match. And a lot of great stuff, man. It's going to be really cool to see where him and Christian's rivalry goes. I think my boy Adam Copeland's going to end up getting that TNT title on one of these upcoming pay-per-views early in 2024, maybe even Revolution. Get the title from Christian Cage. Maybe have Christian Cage go up against Sting. I don't know what's going to happen. But at Revolution next year in 2024 is also going to be Sting's last hurrah, his very last pay-per-view before his so-called retirement. We'll see what happens with that. But it does seem like the icon is finally hanging up his boots. So it's going to be interesting to see how they lead into all that. Really, really interesting stuff. Let's see. Which match am I forgetting about, man? I know I'm forgetting about something. Oh, yeah, the Golden Jets versus Young Bucks. Man, that was a hell of a match, too, dude. One of the best tag team matches I've seen in a while. A lot of intensity building into that. This whole rivalry between the Young Bucks and Chris Jericho, them hating Jericho. Jericho just won the team with Kenny Omega, which to me has been one of the coolest tag team matchups in a while. And with the Golden Jets getting the W this past weekend, and with them now having the chance to challenge Ricky Starks and Big Bill for the tag team belts at any time, is going to be really interesting to see where it goes after they just jumped Jericho this past week as well after the big press conference after the pay-per-view match and all that stuff. So it'll be interesting to see kayfabe-wise where they take everything. But this whole matchup with Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho is like two of the greatest wrestlers of the past couple generations coming together. I hope they get that tag team gold. I do like Big Bill. I like Ricky Starks. Don't get me wrong. But I definitely think it's time for them to drop the belts. And they should drop it to the Golden Jets. Really awesome stuff. Come on. How can you not love Jericho and Kenny Omega if you dig wrestling? You know what I'm saying? It's time for them to get those tag team belts. I can't wait to see where it goes. But, man, great freaking pay-per-view overall, man. And you can't talk about this pay-per-view without getting into the whole main storyline in and of itself. MJF versus Jay White for the AEW World title. And there's been a whole bunch of stuff. Everyone's gunning for Max right now. Everyone's trying to get the belt. You got Roddy as a potential person that could be the devil behind the mask. You got another out there theory that I heard was Sean Spears as well. That was one that I thought was a really, really clever theory. We haven't seen him in a while. Does have a lot of history with the MJF. Does wrestle very well, and we haven't seen him in a minute. So that could be a nice little swerve. And I ain't talking Swerve's house. But we'll see where that goes. But the whole thing with the Guns smashing up MJF's leg after they lost the tag team match to him and Samoa Joe. MJF having to get taken off to the hospital. I figured he would find some way back in time for the match. No way he was going to drop the belt to Jay without a fight. And that's exactly what happened. They had Adam Cole hobbling out there like he was going to try to defend the belt for him and all this shit, which I figured there was no way because the dude actually has a broken ankle. No bullshit. MJF comes hobbling back, steals the ambulance, comes back into the Kia Forum, and arrives just in time for him and Jay White to have a fucking 20, 30 minute some match, man. And let me tell you, that was a hell of a fucking battle for the belt, man. And I gotta say, it was freaking awesome stuff. Jay White, you can't take nothing from the guy. He's definitely one of the best wrestlers out right now, for sure. Definitely very, very well accomplished, very well skilled, but couldn't beat MJF when he's about to get the 365-day title reign, baby. 1 year, longest reigning AEW champ, most title defenses, youngest champ in history. Feels like I'm watching Randy Orton in the Ruthless Aggression era all over again. Great stuff, man. And getting to see the way MJF pulled that thing out. Fair and square for the most part. Got back at Jay, even though they've been fighting dirty for months now. Finally got the Triple B back after Jay White and the freaking Bullet Club Gold have been parading it around all over Collision and AEW for weeks now. It's been freaking awesome. I just love that storyline. But it's not done yet because we got Samoa Joe versus MJF coming up at the end of the year for the last pay-per-view at World's End in Long Island, New York for the belt. It's going to be awesome stuff. I can't wait to see where it goes. Shawn Spears is the devil. I'm calling it now. Or it's Roderick Strong, the obvious choice. But that's my predictions. That is the AEW Full Gear recap. That's the AEW recap for the show, man. I love me some wrestling. Let me know who you got in that Continental Classic if you watch this stuff, man. Good stuff, good stuff, good stuff, good stuff. Alrighty. But now it is time to get into some, what's the word? Pop culture news, man. Pop culture news. Let's start off with a negative one, shall we? So, we're going to get into some of the current state of the MCU right now. And when it comes to the MCU, we've definitely seen better days, you know. There's a longer conversation to be had there, but I don't want to take up too much time in the show discussing that particular subject. But I do want to get into some big updates here. When it comes to Avengers 6, if you will, Secret Wars, it looks like it's getting or Avengers 5, I should say, the Kang Dynasty, is getting a whole creative reboot because the director, Destin Daniel Cretton from Shang-Chi, is officially off the project and apparently left amicably to go work on Wonder Man and the Shang-Chi sequel, which is way long overdue anyway. And now he's going to continue working with Marvel and doing that. There's a whole potential after Loki Season 2 with the whole thing with Jonathan Majors being on trial and with that being up in the air with the whole things and all the crimes he's being accused of. There are some rumors right now that they're potentially thinking of obviously getting a new director, retitling the movie, potentially getting a brand new writer as well, rebooting the whole script, and there's a chance they could be kicking Kang the Conqueror out of the MCU entirely, leaving that thread alone and replacing that with some Doctor Doom vibes up in this thing and completely retitling the movie or the next two Avengers movies, the Secret Wars Part 1 and Secret Wars Part 2. In typical Hollywood fashion, no one really knows for sure what the plans are behind the scenes with the MCU right now. Only God and Kevin Feige knows. But right now, it does not seem like this film is off to a great start right now. But I think what's truly going on, besides the Jonathan Major stuff, which I do believe is a big factor of the situation, I personally think that just with everything going on in the MCU right now and the way that they're taking a step back, with Deadpool 3, the only MCU movie released coming out next year, and potentially only getting 1, maybe 2 TV shows with Echo coming in January and nothing else on the release slate from the MCU, they're definitely pumping the brakes. They're definitely doing a whole creative rehaul on Captain America 4, New World Order, or whatever the fuck. They haven't shot anything on Thunderbolts yet, but they're totally rejiggering that and pushing things back with Blade and all these other projects. It does seem like they're just rethinking this entire plan with phases 5 and 6 and completely redoing everything and just creatively refreshing Avengers 5 and 6 and changing the direction and getting a more clear-cut plan from how to get from point A to point B and how to end this whole multiverse saga once and for all. And I think it's definitely in need of that. And I'm definitely glad as an MCU fan. I've had my ups and downs with it overall. I've definitely enjoyed much more of the projects than I haven't. But it's definitely been a mixed bag regardless. Films have not been even breaking even or making money. The Marvels is guaranteed to be a bomb. There's no way it's not going to be. I think Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania barely broke even or potentially lost money. Eternals a couple years ago lost money. Around this time 2 years ago. The MCU is definitely on a decline right now. And they definitely got to get their shit together if they don't want to get into some serious trouble. I definitely don't think the MCU's over. I know they're past the glory days. This definitely is not the height of the franchise that we know and have come to know and love as the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But I definitely think there's ways for them to pump the brakes, improve these next projects, and really hit the ground running in 2024. With Echo dropping all the episodes in January, and then with Deadpool 3 coming out in the summer in July, if those 2 projects can be a hit, and they can really restore some of the faith of the fan base into the MCU and really get it back into a positive upswing and they can really reboot all these projects moving forward, get a more clear-cut focused plan, stop spreading Kevin Feige so thin, lessen these projects, and really focus on what matters to get us to Phase 5, end of Phase 5, into Phase 6 with Avengers Secret Wars. I really hope they pump the brakes and are able to do that, because if they are able to get things back on track with over the next couple years, 2026 and 2027 could be looking real bright for the future for Secret Wars Part 1 and 2, potentially getting the right filmmaker involved and really getting a clear-cut plan to move forward here in the MCU. I'm rooting for it. I definitely am aware that they definitely aren't in the glory days. There's a lot of work to be done in order to get things back on track, but I fully believe that the MCU is more than capable of doing so, and I'm crossing my fingers and hoping for the best, because I never hope for anything to fail, especially something that I consider myself to be a fan of. I'm going to call it as I see it and keep it real. Hasn't been on point, but I want it to be, and I want it to succeed, because if the MCU succeeds, the DC succeeds, the comic book genre succeeds, if we can get more indies and get more of these things like The Boys and Invincible, and keep this whole genre fresh and original between movies and TV. But we got to get things focused here in the MCU, and that is for damn sure. Secret Wars, new director, whole new creative direction, no matter what, whether Kang's in it or not, that is very, very obvious to see. I don't know if we're going to be having Kang the Conqueror past these projects we just had the past year between Loki Season 2 and Ant-Man Quantumania. I think that we might have seen the last of Kang the Conqueror. But what says you? Let me know what you think about all this MCU craziness down in the comments. We'd love to get your take on it, whether it's positive or negative. We always like to keep it simple, but I always love to hear both sides of the coin. Or if you fall somewhere in the middle like myself, let me know how you're feeling about it. I'm definitely rooting for the MCU to get back on track. I know a lot of you out there are doing the same. So let's stay on topic of something that's sort of similar, I guess, in the same vein, but over in the world of Lucasfilm and Star Wars. So for those that aren't aware, Dave Filoni has been one of the main creative forces behind the Star Wars in the last few years with the whole Mandalorian, Filoni Favreau universe, with The Mandalorian, the upcoming series, Skeleton Crew, which we don't know when that's coming, Book of Boba Fett, and of course, Ahsoka, which just premiered earlier this year and just wrapped up its season a little over a month ago. Ooh, I have a toothache. Ah, it's killing me. Ooh. Ooh, excuse me. Ooh. Ooh. I had to collect myself for a second. Man. But yeah, so anyways, continuing on what I was saying. Dave Filoni recently just got promoted to Chief Creative Officer over at Lucasfilm and is now going to be one of the main creative people in charge as like their Kevin Feige in order to shepherd things into the future and get a more clear-cut plan for the Star Wars franchise as we know it between film and TV. Now, I have a lot of positive with this, but a few concerns. The big positives with this is that they're going to have somebody in charge in order to keep things consistent, in order to get a clear-cut plan, in order to do whatever they want to do for all the different timelines and different points in the timeline and different things that they can do in different corners of the Star Wars universe. And I think that's only a good thing. Another good thing about that is with him spearheading the Mandalorian film and the Mandalorian kind of crossover film, if you will, and everything built into that, him being the chief creative officer only helps strengthen the idea that that is much more of a real possibility and that we will actually get this Mandalorian universe, New Republic era film that they're talking about, Heir to the Empire adaptation, if you will, that we're supposed to be getting somewhere within the next 2 to 3 years. This definitely makes it much more of a real possibility, and also makes the films that they have announced recently between the Rey movie and the Jedi Sith origin movie with what's his name? I'm having a brain fart. James Mangold, there you go, from Logan and the latest Indiana Jones film. He has his own Star Wars origin film he wants to do for the Jedi Order and the Force as we know it in general. So all those projects that they have announced could actually become a reality if Dave Filoni is down for them and has a creative vision. These things actually could be much more of a reality. Now, the downside to some of this, though, is I do think that sometimes he holds a little too true to the Lucas thing of just faster, more action and stuff like that, where I think sometimes you need to pump the brakes and allow more nuance and more character-driven stuff to be going on. And I think that was some of the problem with Ahsoka. While I did enjoy the hell out of the series for the most part, I do think some of the writing was a little lackluster, and you didn't quite get those more character-driven moments and more of the just more layered storytelling and layered writing that you got from stuff like Andor, which I thought was absolutely phenomenal, but you never hear Dave Filoni ever mention that. So I'm not necessarily sure if he's a fan of that or digs that overall vibe, and I kind of have a feeling that he doesn't. But overall, I hope that he can look at that and look at some of the more mature sides of Star Wars and implement that type of writing into the future, especially with Mandalorian Season 4. Because Season 3, to me, had a lot of that same writing issues, just really clunky stuff, fillery type things, not staying focused on the main storyline, bringing Baby Yoda back too quick. All these things, I think, just really bogged Season 3 down for Mandalorian, where to me it was just a solid season, and the first two seasons to me are some of the best Star Wars content we've had in literal decades. So for me personally, I think they got a little too far away from what really made that show special, was the slower pace, the episodic format, and the slightly more layered, more mature vibe and storytelling and things going on with the character dynamics and everything like that, and just character decisions and just the overall pacing of the story just felt a lot more in sync with what was going on. Some people think Season 2 got a little more cameo heavy than they would have preferred, but I didn't mind that per se, because to me, it all served a greater purpose for the story and all felt like it was organic to the story that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, more importantly for this discussion, had in mind and had written out and wanted to see through. And for Season 3, it just felt like they lost their way a little bit and lost focus. So I am hoping in the future they could take all the positive Ahsoka, take some of those highlight moments from Mandalorian Season 3, keep that great creative plan, and just get a little more focus and stay on target, if you will. But I think all in all, Dave Filoni being in charge is definitely a huge plus for Star Wars, a huge plus for Lucasfilm, and a big deal for us fans as well to get us some really cool stuff and to keep things consistent on an awesome level. Want to hear from y'all in the comments on this one as well. But that's pretty much it for that discussion. A little more short and sweet to the point. We do got two more big topics to get into today before we wrap this show up. Two huge ones, man. Two pretty big ones. And the first one being Superman Legacy casting. James Gunn is going to be with the producer Peter Safran spearheading the new era of the DCU. The DC universe, where between comics, video games, movies, and TV shows, everything's supposed to be interconnected in a similar fashion to the way Lucasfilm announced things in 2012 and the way that the MCU has been doing things minus comic books and video games, and, of course, and animation, because What If didn't tie into anything that had to do with the MCU whatsoever, in my personal opinion, and made that a little bit disappointing. But that is a topic for another day. Anyways, we're talking about the DCU, and we got some more Superman Legacy casting because we have David Corn Sweat, up-and-coming actor who was also seen in Pearl, that's going to be playing Clark Kent, the title character of Superman himself. You got Rachel Brosnahan from Marvelous Miss Maisel fame coming in to play Lois Lane. And we have three other main roles to talk about for the casting updates here on Superman Legacy. Why don't we start with the biggest one first, and probably a much more important role in the grand scheme of things. And we're talking about maybe the main antagonist of Superman Legacy. Lex Luthor is going to be played by none other than Nicholas Hoult. For those who aren't familiar from the face or aren't great with names, he is the guy that was playing Hank McCoy in the X-Men prequel series between First Class, X-Men Days of Future Past, X-Men Dark Apocalypse, and X-Men Dark Phoenix. He was also in the hit movie last year, which was also a really kick-ass horror thriller, The Menu. He's also in a ton of other stuff, and he also did that movie Renfield with Nicolas Cage earlier this year, which I still haven't seen, but I heard was a good amount of fun. He's going to be our new Lex Luthor in Superman Legacy. And the one thing I will say, after seeing his performance in the movie The Menu, I think he might have the chops to do it. I think he might be able to pull off some of that asshole nature to him, some of that more arrogant nature of Lex Luthor as well, where he was able to portray that through the food kind of douchebag, food critic douchebag character he was playing in The Menu. You know what I'm saying? So I do see where he might be able to pull this off. I can't picture him bald. And he hasn't necessarily been intimidating in any role that I've seen him in, but that can change because all great actors can tap into something that we haven't seen before. We've seen this countless times, but not just comic book movie characters, but just characters in general when it comes to fiction. So I never get too ahead of myself with casting, unless they said David Spade is Wolverine or something weird like that. So it's not that weird. I don't necessarily think Nicholas Hoult is a bad choice for Lex Luthor. Just wasn't necessarily my number one choice, and just isn't something I necessarily would picture off the bat. But I do want to give him the benefit of the doubt until we see some footage and see what the overall look and vibe for this Lex Luthor is really going to be. Because back in 2014 or 15, when they announced Jesse Eisenberg to play Lex Luthor, I thought that was going to be awesome. And that turned out to be one of the worst comic book movie castings we've seen in decades. So you never really know until things are in full swing and you see it in action on screen. So I'm going to reserve judgment for now. But when it comes to this other casting, these are two characters aren't necessarily as popular or as important, I guess, but is worth bringing up anyway. What the hell are these people's names? I think I wrote them down. Here we are. So you got Skylar Gisanda playing Jimmy Olsen and Sarah Sampao playing the character of Eve Teschmacher. I just fucking butchered all these names except Jimmy Olsen. Guy on the left, to your left, is going to be playing Jimmy Olsen. Obviously, the girl to the right is going to be playing Sarah Sampao. She's also a Victoria's Secret model, so hey, good for her, man. Now, Eve Teschmacher, whatever the fuck, Taskmaster, whatever. She is not a character that's necessarily super famous or anything or super well known by a lot of us younger fans, but I did do some research and see that she was a supporting character in the first Superman movie with Christopher Reeve. Is a character that's been in comic books before and was also on TV as well. I think in Smallville or one of the CW shows or something. So the character has been in live action before, has been a part of the Superman lore for a while now, but isn't necessarily one of the more well-known characters. But it is interesting to see that James Gunn's going to be implementing that character into things, and I'm sure she's going to probably be the love interest of Lex Luthor as she has been in the past. But I have a feeling that her and Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor are going to have some kind of connection in the film, whether that's romantic or not. Professional time will tell. But I do think that that James Gunn, as the screenwriter of the movie, as one of the main people in charge of pushing this forward creatively, I think he's definitely going to be leaning in that direction. I believe he is directing the film as well, if I'm not mistaken. So I do think he does have quite a very specific plan for this character of Eve Teschmacher or whatever. And it's going to be interesting to see how he implements that character into the storyline. Jimmy Olsen, much more straightforward. You can pretty much tell how he's going to implement that character into the mix. But still will be very interesting to see how he works all that stuff into the mix. I'm very, very curious about it. But yeah, man, that's pretty much it for the Superman Legacy casting. Lex Luthor being a big, big deal there. Let me know if you had a better choice for Lex Luthor yourself. Drop your short list down in those comments below. And let me know if you think that Nicholas Holt's the right choice. Do you hate it? Do you love it? Fall somewhere in between. Would love to get your opinions on that shit right there. But yeah, so it's time for us to get into the main news topic of today, which is a big fucking bummer and a lot of bullshit, in my opinion, and dives into some of the big fucking bullshit with cancel culture these days. And what I'm talking about is the firing of Melissa Barrera from Scream 7. Spyglass Media recently fired Melissa Barrera about 2 days ago from the time you were seeing this, 2 to 3 days ago from the time you're seeing this, from Scream 7, right in the midst of getting ready to prepare to finish writing the film and shoot it sometime next year. They fired her for supposedly anti-Semitic comments, which they aren't anti-Semitic comments, by the way. But she essentially tweeted comments on her private social media, or on her public social media page, about her wanting the big war going down in between Israel and Gaza right now. She essentially said that it's genocide is what's going on over there. She wants all the war and the murder and the killing to stop and would prefer things to move in a more peaceful direction for those people over there, regardless of who's doing it and what's going on. All she pretty much said was she wants this war to end. And to me, it was much more of a very much more hippie tree hugger statement if you really look at it. Nothing wrong with that, but just calling it as I see it, right? But apparently, some producer high up in Spyglass Media has deemed these comments to be anti-Semitic. I do have a screenshot of some of the things that I think was said, so I might be able to pull that up for you guys. I think I got the screenshot for that, so I will show that on screen, let you judge for yourself. But there's also another bit of bad news going on for this as well, and pretty much spells really bad news for Scream 7 because the great Jenna Ortega, who played Melissa Barrera's sister, Tara Carpenter, in the film, to Sarah Carpenter there, Melissa Barrera's character, but Tara Carpenter would not be returning in Scream 7 as the character, and Jenna Ortega would not be returning either due to her shooting schedule with both Wednesday Season 2 and Beetlejuice 2. So she's in its full sequel swing one way or another. And interesting timing with that coming out right around the time of Melissa Barrera's firing and all that crazy shit. But that's pretty much the deal here. Melissa Barrera's out. Jenna Ortega is out. Scream 7 is in fucking trouble, man. It's in fucking trouble. And it's just crazy to me, man, because I got to pull these comments up because personally, in my opinion, these are not anti-Semitic comments whatsoever, man. This is complete fucking bullshit, man. Like, all she did was state her opinion about something, didn't incite violence, didn't say anything really controversial or anything too crazy compared to what any other celebrity has done or said in recent memory whatsoever, man. Like, this is so ridiculous, y'all. Like, the fact that they did not sit her down and have some kind of discussion behind the scenes about this, to me, is fucking ludicrous, man. So I'm going to go over here to CNN Entertainment, and I'm going to pull this article up here. And we're going to get, we're going to get into her rebuttal from what she said before. We're going to get into her response from what happened in the whole shakeout of this thing, because I just want to get into what she said as a response to the whole entire statement. And then yeah, so she provided the statement 2 days ago on Wednesday after the firing on Tuesday or Wednesday. And there's a spokesperson for Spyglass that also commented on the situation, but let's get into this thing right now. So I'm going to see if I can pull this up for you guys. If it gets a little glitchy, I apologize. All right, let me close Black Friday. Sorry, guys. So here's the article here. All right, we're going to start from this paragraph here. This starts off with Spyglass. Spyglass stance is unequivocally clear. We have zero tolerance for anti-Semitism or the incitement of hate in any form, including false references to genocide, ethnic cleansing, Holocaust distortion, or anything that flagrantly crosses the line into hate speech. Now, we're going to get into what her original statement was, so I'll let you judge for yourself if you would consider it to be anti-Semitic or anti-Semitism or incitement of hate in any form or hate speech or any of that bullshit. On Wednesday, CNN has reached out to representatives for Barrera, obviously her management team, for additional comment. On Wednesday, Barrera herself posted a statement on the Instagram stories portion of her account after the news broke of her departure from the Scream franchise. And here's her statements in full quotes, exact quotes here. First and foremost, I condemn anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. I condemn hate and prejudice of any kind against any group of people, she wrote. As a Latina, a proud Mexicana, I feel the responsibility of having a platform that allows me the privilege of being heard, and therefore, I have tried to use it to raise awareness about issues I care about and to lend my voice to those in need. She continued by writing, every person on this earth deserves equal human rights, dignity, and of course, freedom. I believe a group of people are not their leadership, and that no governing body should be above criticism. I pray day and night for no more deaths, for no more violence, and for peaceful coexistence. She concluded her statement with this. I will continue to speak out for those that need it most and continue to advocate for peace and safety, for human rights and freedom. Silence is not an option for me. That was her rebuttal to the whole shakeout from her firing. Now, we're going to search through Google, and we're going to find her original statement here. See if I can find it. We're now on the Vulture, as you can see. Here's another statement that she posted here. I love my Jewish friends. I stand with you in these horrible times. I empathize with you. Sorry, I empathize with your fear and pain. No one deserves to be persecuted or attacked. And all Jewish people are not the Israeli government. Do not blame or hate on a whole group of people because of what some are doing. I stand with all those caught in the crossfire. All right. Damn, I cannot find this original statement anyway. God damn it. Sorry for the dead air, folks. Whatever. I'll let you find that yourselves. But based on any of the statements I just read to you now, and at least if you can hear the audio, maybe you don't see the video. I'm not sure. I can't see anything on my end. Perfect. This is just fantastic. Awesome. So, yeah, probably didn't hear shit I just said for the last 30 seconds. Let's see if the camera stops glitching. Are we back? Cool. All right. So, hopefully all that wasn't all muddled and fucked up and shit, but if you heard what I said and heard what was going on, this is a lot of fucking bullshit, guys. Since when did it become taboo, or when did it become wrong for people to state their opinions about events going on in the world? You know what I'm saying? No one incited violence, had any hate speech of any kind in her statements whatsoever. This to me rings of somebody that is way too sensitive or is picking sides in this argument and has some kind of personal ties to what's going on because A, they're a Jewish person, B, they're Palestinian or something of the like, and they have some kind of personal tie to what's going on. And not saying that's wrong, but I feel like someone high up in Spyglass has a personal connection to what's going on and either jumped the gun or took this way too personally and got personally offended and wanted to take this out on her as a personal attack against her after feeling personally attacked, and has nothing to do with the well-being of the franchise or trying to protect anything in the best interest of the studio or the franchise in and of itself. And in my opinion, is fucking the franchise over because they already lost the main draw of the franchise with Neve Campbell not coming back as Sidney Prescott due to a pay dispute, due to a overall wage dispute. Now you don't have Melissa Barrera. Now Jenna Ortega is too busy. Now you have no one to lean this franchise on other than Courtney Cox, who I believe isn't necessarily interested in that. And I don't necessarily think that character is necessarily the right choice to lead the franchise forward after you walked back a ton of the character development they did in Scream 6. It was one of the few things I didn't like about Scream 6. And one thing I do want to make clear, Scream 6 is one of my favorite films of the year and one of my favorite horror sequels of all time. I love that movie. Loved it to death. And Melissa Barrera's performance was nothing short of excellent. Jenna Ortega, her performance was nothing short of excellent. Now, we all were aware that she was probably going to be too busy to do Scream 7 anyway. So I'm fully aware of that, and I keep up with all this stuff, doing the podcast and whatnot. So I'm aware of that. But they have totally shot themselves in the foot here, and I don't know how likely it is for them to ask Melissa to come back. I don't know how likely it is for them to be able to work this out. But as of today or yesterday, by the time or as of yesterday, by the time you're seeing this video, as of the previous day of this going up on the channel, the writers are going back to square one and rewriting the entire script and only keeping certain key moments and sequences in the film in the next draft. So it appears that there is no plans right now to bring Melissa Barrera back at all. You got the whole hashtag Save Melissa thing going on right now. Lake Woodsboro and other publications that follow that post a lot about Scream content have been pushing this out there. I'm definitely going to make sure to get out there and repost this myself. And definitely going to be spreading that message because this is a lot of bullshit in my opinion. Now, where does this leave the Scream 7 franchise? They definitely are looking to creatively reboot this, potentially get Neve Campbell back, maybe get Patrick Dempsey back. He did just have a turn as a character in a recent horror film, Thanksgiving, from Eli Roth that just dropped this past week. So anything's possible, but they have definitely fucked the Scream franchise up right now, and I don't know exactly where they're going to go from here. It is definitely hard to tell. And I definitely think they just fucked over an actress in the process for a lot of bullshit. And I just don't think none of this is necessary. A lot of this could have been handled with a quick conversation behind the scenes. But since we don't know both sides of the story, we don't work at Spyglass. I don't work at Spyglass. I'm not the person that fired her. I'm not Melissa Barrera. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but a lot of this smells pretty fishy to me. And I smell bullshit. But I want to know what y'all think about this. Do you think Scream 7 can be creatively rebooted with new characters? Do they need to get Courtney Cox back? Do they need to try everything they can to get Neve Campbell back? Do you see any likelihood of Melissa Barrera or Jenna Ortega returning to the franchise to lead things forward? I want to hear from all you Scream fans out there. You guys have always came out and showed a lot of love to the Scream content we post on the channel. I am a huge Scream fan. Scream is literally my favorite horror franchise, my favorite horror film. The reason why I love horror to this day. So this is really important to me. I'm sure it's important to a lot of Scream fans out there like you. And I think just in the grand scheme of people having their rights violated in the format of any of this stuff within entertainment and stuff like that, this is where it truly gets into that territory for me. But I want to hear from y'all, and I want to know what your opinion is about this whole entire Scream 7 controversy going on down below in the comments. Please let us know what you think about it. I would love to discuss it with each and every one of you. No matter where you fall on it, whether you agree or disagree with Spyglass Media or Melissa Barrera, whatever, I would love to hear your opinion and your perspective on the subject. But that's pretty much going to wrap it up for the Fandom Frequency Show. This is the 31st episode. We're going to try to start getting these out a lot more consistently, especially as we get into the new year, 2024. We got a lot of cool things we got planned for the channel. If you want to do things to keep things creatively fresh around here, try some new things, and keep doing what you guys seem to be responding to the most around the channel. Thank you so much for sticking to the end. If you did, if you checked out all the different topics of the show at hand, we're probably going to have some clip outs coming up here on the weekend, so you can check out some of these subjects in and of themselves to be a little more crunch for time like your boy is during the week himself, if you are this weekend or whenever you check this out in the future, man. But we appreciate and love each and every one of you. Make sure you enjoy and stay safe out there for that Black Friday shopping and all that madness, even though it has calmed down over the last 5 to 10 years. But be careful out there. Look out for your loved ones. Enjoy the Thanksgiving leftovers and all that shit. Make sure you stay tuned. You don't sleep. We'll catch you again on the channel real soon. I love and appreciate every one of you. Peace out.